Today is lesson 76, and we will be talking about multiplying fractions. Multiplying fractions. Now, part of this we have already studied before, so it shouldn't be too difficult as we look at the combination of things we've already studied with a little new twist to it. Now, the first thing I want to remind you is the statement of. So if I said 1/2 of 12 equals. Well, write that down in your notebook, but then I want you to write underneath it what it would look like if we changed the of. Hopefully you remembered it would be 1/2 of 12, and we put the 12 over the 1 because we're turning a whole number into a fraction. So we've already done this part where we said that when you see the of, you know it means multiplication. So if we said 1/2 of 12, we would then multiply. 1 times 12 is 12. 2 times 1 is 2. Now we look at what we did yesterday, which is turn this improper bad fraction into a mixed number, which hopefully, since it was just yesterday, you would say, oh, I know what to do. 2 goes into 12 6 times. So 1/2 of 12 is 6. Now, those are just a few things to remember. The first thing is when you see the of, you have to remember that it means multiply. The second thing to remember is when you have an improper fraction, you need to turn it into a mixed number, or in this case, a whole number, and you do that by dividing. Now, if you can remember those, you're going to find today's lesson is a piece of cake. Now, just to show you, let's look at, and we'll do another problem. If I said 1/2 of 1/2. Oops. Let's try that as half. 1/2 of 1/2. Now, write down below that, what is it going to look like when you make the change you need to with that of? And it should look like this. Now, when you multiply fractions, you need to remember you're going to multiply across the top and you multiply across the bottom. It is different from addition. Addition, you do top only with the bottom staying the same. When you multiply, you have to multiply across the top and then you multiply across to the bottom. So I would say 1 times 1 equals 1. 2 times 2 equals 4. Now, I don't have an improper fraction, so I am fine with my answer being 1/4. Now, did you notice that our answer is smaller than our original fractions? Here's why. Let me draw it out for you. Here is a circle. Here is half. Now, if I were to ask you to mark 1/2 of your 1/2, that's right here. Here's my half, and I've wanted 1/2 of my half. So I do get a smaller piece when I multiply fractions. When you multiply whole numbers, you're going to get a bigger number. When you multiply fractions, you will always get a smaller number. So 1/2 times 1/2 equals 1/4, which is a smaller fraction. Now, we're not always going to draw out our circles. You have to be able to just do it mathematically, kind of like we saw yesterday. You don't want to always draw out your pies. You want to do them mathematically. Same thing. So if we said 1/2 of 3/4, or 1/2 times 3/4, because we know that our little multiplication sign is the same thing as saying the of. So with this one, I just do the multiplication across top. 1 times 3 is 3, and across bottom, 2 times 4 is 8. So 1/2 of 3/4 equals 3/8. Now again, we could draw the picture of it, drawing 1/2, drawing actually 3/4, and then dividing it in half, and you would find that we end up with 3/8. All I want you to be able to do, though, is mathematically be able to remember when you multiply fractions. So let's write this in. To multiply fractions, across top, or our numerator, and then across bottom, or our denominator. That makes it easier to remember. When you multiply fractions, you multiply across the top, and then you multiply across the bottom. That is multiplying fractions. Now we're going to take a look at one other little thing with numbers, just so that you can see how this will work as well. Now, one example in your book, ask a question. A nickel is what fraction of a dime? Well, a nickel is 5 cents, and a dime is 10 cents. So actually, a nickel is 1/2 of a dime. Pretty much here, 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 10 twice. So it's 1/2 of the dime. 5 cents is half of 10 cents. If it says a dime is what fraction of a dollar? Well, a dime is 10 cents. A dollar is 100 cents. Now here what I can do is I'm going to go ahead and take care of my 2 zeros. If I have one on the top and the bottom, we've talked about that before. I can take them off, one off the top and one off the bottom. So 10 1/100ths actually equals 1/10. So a dime is 1/10 of a dollar. Now it says a nickel is what fraction of a dollar? Well, a nickel is what fraction of a dollar? I've got the nickel and I've got the dollar. Well, here I could say 5 goes into 5 once, and 5 goes into 100 20 times. So it would be 1/20th. Now what the book says to do, it says look at your answers to all of these and see if you can show that 1/2 of 1/10 equals 1/20th. Well, if we would have just read that at the beginning, we wouldn't have had to do all these pieces. We would have said 1/2 of 1/10 equals 1/20. So it's all just remembering that of, and that you multiply across the top and multiply across the bottom. We'll finish up by me giving you 3 problems that I want you to do, and we will check them tomorrow just to make sure you're on the right track. The first one is 1/3 times 2/3. 1/3 times 2/3. The second one is 3/5 times 1/2. 3/5 times 1/2. And our last one is 2/3 times 2/3. So you do each of those, and tomorrow we will check them in class and make sure you have the correct answers and that you've remembered that to multiply fractions, you multiply across the top, then you multiply across the bottom, and the word of is just like a multiplication sign. Have a wonderful night.